So can everyone do the famous or infamous lotus pose? Of course, I don't think so, hence the video. What I want you to understand is how the ball and socket of your pelvis is designed. So you have your femur, so this is the neck of your femur, this is the ball of your femur, and that fits quite snugly into the acetabulum of your hip. So the acetabulum is your socket and the end of the femur is a ball. This creates your hip ball and socket joint. Now, do we think that every single hip ball and socket joint looks like this? Because of the way we've studied anatomy over the years and because of the skeletons that have been produced, this has given us a very kind of clinical look at the skeleton, and we've come to this conclusion that every skeleton looks exactly the same. The reality is they do not, and they are very, very unique. You will find it near impossible to have a real-life human skeleton that looks exactly like this. So this ball and socket joint is designed to do a whole bunch of things. It's designed to take your leg out away from you, inwards, forwards, backwards, rotation, inside and outside. It's a really fascinating joint which does have mobility, does require a lot of stability as well, because this is where your body bears a lot of load. Now, the ball and socket joint is our focus. The socket itself, as you're looking from the camera, faces more towards me. Some sockets face more inwards. So if you are looking at this skeleton, you can see the inside layer of the acetabulum, the socket. That would imply that this particular individual, they are going to be very comfortable at sprinting or doing any type of movement that requires the hip to come forward. The design of the hip dictates that forward movement at the hip is going to be very, very comfortable and quite natural. That's referred to as anteversion. So the hip socket faces more forwards. That particular person is going to find lotus pose very, very difficult simply based on the design of the hip. So if the hip is facing, if the socket is facing inwards, the ball is naturally facing inwards, which makes it turning outwards very, very difficult. It's not impossible, but it is very, very difficult. Now, there's a flip side to that, which is called retroversion, where the socket faces more posteriorly or faces backwards more, which means this person is going to find it very difficult to lift the hip forward, but will find lotus pose very, very comfortable, or will find it very accessible. So your hip socket, the ball and socket joint, the way it's designed determines how comfortable you're going to find your lotus pose and how accessible you're going to find your lotus pose. There are other factors which contribute to hip movement as well. Your acetabular abduction angle, which determines how far out you can abduct or take the leg out to the side. And that is based on the angle here, the acetabular abduction angle. So some people, their angle will be more like this. So from here I can see more of the inside of the acetabulum. That will make side splits very, very accessible for that person. But if I saw less of the inside of the socket from this position, so if the socket was facing more downwards, they would find the Van Damme split position very, very uncomfortable. Actually, they'd find it impossible. They can practice and they can try and they can keep persevering, but all they will experience is pain. Nothing will change, because that is the uniqueness of your anatomy. Of course, I'm oversimplifying. There is a lot more happening at this hip. If you were to add ligaments and other tissues on, it would look completely different. They also have a huge influence on the range of movement which is available at this ball and socket joint. But if we take everything away and look at the skeleton structure itself, we begin to appreciate that our hips are unique. Even the length of the femur neck and the angle that it enters the acetabulum is different for every person. That in itself determines how much movement that you have in and around your hip. We also have these kind of protrusions. This is the huge hip bone that you can feel on the side, your greater trochanter, sorry, this is the lesser trochanter. They won't look like this in every person as well. Every person is going to have some sort of uniqueness in their anatomy that really needs to be understood and respected, because if you've been trying to do lotus pose for a long period of time, for years, you're still not making progress and all you're experiencing is discomfort and potential pain around the hip. That is your body telling you that you are fighting your anatomy, and unfortunately you cannot win. This is why I tell people that I do yoga and you should do yoga, because you love to do yoga and yoga helps lubricate your joints and make you feel better. But you shouldn't be doing yoga to chase this level of flexibility that you may not have. Practice yoga, enjoy yoga, and just see what happens with the body that you've been blessed with or given or just been lucky enough to have. Because if you keep pushing yourself to attain this certain level of flexibility, you will come up against a wall, which is your anatomy, and like I said, you will not win. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Zahir and I will see you soon.